Ever wonder what you might find in your attic besides that treadmill you bought in 2020 and your collection of temporary storage boxes that have somehow become permanent residents? Well, buckle up, because today's story is going to make your forgotten Christmas decorations look like amateur hour. In 2024, Sarah Mitchell was clearing out her grandmother's attic in suburban Boston when she stumbled upon something extraordinary, and I don't mean another bread maker still in its original packaging. Hidden beneath decades of dust and forgotten memories was a wooden box containing hundreds of letters exchanged during World War II. But these weren't just any wartime correspondence. They revealed an incredible love story that would make Nicholas Sparks reach for his notebook and say, "Now that's romantic." I'm your host, and today we're diving into a tale that proves sometimes the best love stories aren't found in Hollywood scripts, but in dusty attics between people who probably never imagined their words would be read by anyone but each other. The letters were exchanged between Eleanor Hayes, a nurse stationed in England, and James Crawford, a U.S. Army pilot. And let me tell you, these two could teach modern dating apps a thing or two about romance. No ghosting, no you up, texts at 2 a.m., just pure, heartfelt connection through ink and paper. It all began in 1943 when Eleanor, or Ellie as James called her, was treating wounded soldiers at a military hospital in London. James had been brought in with a minor injury, which he later admitted in one letter he may have slightly exaggerated just to spend more time in the medical ward. Smooth operator, James. Very smooth. Their first letter, dated March 15th, 1943, starts with James writing, "Dear Nurse Hayes, I hope this letter finds you well, and that you won't think me too forward for writing." Spoiler alert. She didn't think he was too forward. In fact, she thought he was just forward enough. What makes these letters particularly special is how they capture both the epic scale of world-changing events and the intimate details of two people falling in love. One moment, James is describing mission preparations and Eleanor is detailing hospital procedures, and the next they're sharing their hopes, dreams, and favorite jazz records. It's like if Band of Brothers met You've Got Mail, but with better penmanship. In one particularly moving letter, Eleanor writes about treating wounded soldiers during an air raid. The bombs are falling outside, but in here, life goes on. We save who we can, we comfort who we can't. And somehow in between all of this chaos, I find myself thinking about that pilot, with the charming smile who promised to teach me to dance when this is all over. James's letters are equally captivating, though occasionally interrupted by military censors who apparently thought his description of Eleanor's eyes might somehow aid the enemy. I mean, I suppose if you're going to lose a war, losing it to poetry about someone's azure pools of endless summer would be a unique way to go. But it's not just the romance that makes these letters fascinating. They're a window into daily life during wartime. Eleanor describes London during the Blitz with vivid detail. The city feels like a theater set sometimes, with half the buildings just facades. But the people, oh, the people are more real than ever. Meanwhile, James writes about mission preparations with a mix of duty and dry humor. They tell us these new oxygen masks are top of the line. Personally, I think they just recycled gas masks from the last war and painted them blue. The letters reveal how their relationship deepened despite, or perhaps because of, the circumstances. They shared their fears, their losses, and their small victories. Eleanor wrote about successfully saving a soldier's leg that everyone else had given up on. James described the surreal beauty of flying above the clouds, while searchlights crisscrossed the darkness below. There's one letter from James that particularly stands out, written after a close call during a mission. "I used to think being brave meant not being scared. Now I know it means being terrified, but doing what needs to be done anyway. Kind of like how I'm terrified of messing up this letter and having you think I'm an idiot, but I'm writing it anyway." Their correspondence wasn't all serious, though. They shared jokes, gossiped about their colleagues, and played long-distance word games. Eleanor would start a story in one letter, and James would have to finish it in his reply. Some of these stories got pretty wild. One involved a escaped circus elephant, a French resistance fighter, and a very confused Nazi officer who apparently had a severe peanut allergy. As Eleanor noted, sometimes laughter is the best medicine, even if we have to manufacture it ourselves. The letters also reveal their growing plans for the future. They dreamed of a small house with a garden, talked about names for future children, and debated whether Boston or London would be their eventual home. James wrote, I've never been much of a gardener, but I'm willing to learn if it means seeing you every morning among the roses. But then, in late 1944, the letters stop abruptly. Sarah Mitchell, finding these letters 80 years later, felt her heart sink at this point. What happened to James and Eleanor? Did their love story end in tragedy, like so many others during that terrible war? Well, this is where the story takes an unexpected turn. After weeks of research, Sarah discovered that the letters stopped because James and Eleanor finally got to be together. He was transferred to Eleanor's hospital after being injured in a mission over Germany. According to hospital records, Eleanor was his nurse again, this time for a more serious injury. But here's the kicker. They were married in the hospital chapel 3 weeks later. James was still on crutches, and Eleanor wore her nurse's uniform because there wasn't time to find a proper wedding dress. Their witnesses were other nurses and patients, and their wedding cake was made from saved-up ration coupons. The story doesn't end there, though. Sarah's research revealed that James and Eleanor Crawford had a long and happy life together after the war. They settled in Boston, had 3 children, and remained married for 52 years until James passed away in 1996. Eleanor followed in 2002, having spent their last years together writing their own story, a memoir that was sadly never published. But perhaps the most touching discovery was a letter found at the very bottom of the box, dated 1994. It was from James to Eleanor on their 50th wedding anniversary. In shaky handwriting, he wrote, "My dearest Ellie, 50 years ago, I promised to love you until death do us part. I now realize I was thinking too small. I'll love you well beyond that." The impact of these letters extends beyond just their romantic value. They provide historians with invaluable insights into wartime life, medical practices, and social attitudes of the 1940s. Eleanor's descriptions of hospital procedures and James's accounts of aerial warfare offer first-hand perspectives that complement official military records. The letters have since been donated to the National World War II Museum, where they're being digitized for future generations. They've also inspired a new research project focusing on wartime romance and its impact on military morale. But perhaps the most meaningful legacy of these letters is how they remind us that even in humanity's darkest hours, love finds a way to flourish. Between air raids and battles, between life and death, 2 people found each other and built a future together. Their story teaches us something profound about love and war, about courage and connection. In an age of instant messaging and disposable communication, these letters remind us of the power of written words, of taking the time to really share our thoughts and feelings with those we care about. So the next time you're cleaning out your attic, take a closer look at those dusty boxes. You never know what stories they might be hiding. And maybe, just maybe, consider writing a letter to someone you love. No emojis, no abbreviations, just honest words on paper. Because sometimes the most meaningful connections don't need Wi-Fi. Who knows? Maybe 80 years from now, someone will find your letters and be just as moved as we are by James and Eleanor's story. Though you might want to work on your handwriting first, we don't want future historians thinking you were actually a doctor writing prescriptions. Thank you for joining me for this remarkable story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And let me know in the comments about any amazing discoveries you've made in your own attics, though I draw the line at bread makers. Until next time, keep exploring, keep discovering, and keep believing in love stories that stand the test of time.